morning and welcome to SBConnect, where we connect to and educate for the world of work. Today is Fashion Industry Month. This is Fashion Industry Month, and today we have Justin Hudson, CEO of 1LoveIE, with us today to tell us all about his story, of entrepreneurship, how he has just rocked the Inland Empire with an incredible brand and has taken it not just across the nation, but all over the world. So without further ado, we want to welcome Justin Hudson, CEO of 1LoveIE for Fashion Industry Month. Good morning.
Doc, good morning. Thank you for having me, sir. Really appreciate it.
Why don't you start with talking to us about your story of entrepreneurship?
I appreciate it. Well, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is having a great morning. Happy Tuesday. And yeah, when I think about my journey, my introduction to entrepreneurship, it takes me back to high school. I do remember in elementary, I was selling candy, but in high school is when I really got my hands on entrepreneurship. And, you know, growing up, my mom and my dad, they weren't big fans of me wearing $100 shoes. They weren't going to buy me $150 jeans, and I had this expensive taste. And so in order for me to fulfill this need of this expensive taste, I had to think outside the box. I said, okay, if my parents aren't going to buy me these shoes or these clothes, and I'm tired of wearing certain brands, I want to be cool. And so I started back selling candy in high school. And so eventually from candy, I started selling CDs, and I started selling clothes. Like, I love clothes. Clothes has always been something that I've had a great passion for. And so I remember in high school, I was selling candy and clothes, and I would use that money to buy shoes. And so I was a big, and I'm still a big shoe head. I collect shoes. I've been collecting shoes since the 6th grade. But in high school, there were Dunks. I was so in love with the Nike Dunk, and my parents, again, they weren't going to buy me these $100 shoes. And so I would sell candy, and I would sell shoes, and I would sell clothes. And then over time, I said, man, I enjoy this. I like connecting with people. I like making my money. And I got my first job working at Rite Aid. And I'll never forget that. And I remember I was making $6.95 an hour. And I would probably work like 24, 25 hours a week. And what I would make in a week at Rite Aid, I would probably make in like 3 days selling candy and clothes, kind of doing my little hustle. And I'm like, wait a minute, something's not adding up. So you mean to tell me I could spend less hours selling stuff and I would make more versus all the hours and the time I spent, scooping ice cream at Rite Aid? I'm like, something's not adding up. And so as I got older, that love and that drive for entrepreneurship followed me. And I always had a vision of having my own brand one day. And I never knew how it was going to pan out, but I knew I loved clothes and I love connecting with people. And I love the idea of entrepreneurship. And so I remember going to college, RCC, and that's when it all happened for me. A good friend of mine who I call a brother, he invited me to come to France with him. And he said, hey man, I'm starting this fashion line of bags, and I have this French partner, and you should come to France with me. And I'm like, France? I've never been outside the country. And I'm like, go to France? And so I went to France, and that changed my life. And so here I am in France. I would consider France the fashion capital of the world. Others would say New York, but here I am in France, and people were asking me, where are you from? Who are you? What's going on? I kept saying, oh, I'm from LA. And respectfully, I grew up here in the Inland Empire. And so then I'm like, wait, why do I keep saying LA? But I'm from here. I'm from here. So after my trip, I came back, and I was just so blown away because I've never been outside the country, and I saw this new culture, and I was just in love with what I saw and how people were dressing, and just a different atmosphere. And I told myself, that's the life I want to live. I want to live this unique life, and I want to be able to travel the world. And how am I going to get there? I'm not going to get there working this regular job. I want to have control of my destiny. And so when I got back, I was thinking about different things I could do, different business ventures. And I always kept circling back to clothes and fashion. And so when we think about entrepreneurship, we're solving a problem. Entrepreneurs are solving a problem. So when we look at Steve Jobs. Fulfilled the void. We needed a way to connect with our friends and family with this type of device, which is the cell phone. But not only that, he took the cell phone and he made it advanced, so we could FaceTime. We can do so many things on our cell phone. So he was able to fulfill that void. He solved a problem. And so for me, the problem that I saw was, here in my hometown, in my region, we have no identity. We have nothing that represents us. And so I want to create a brand that gave us an identity, and it represented our community, but at the same time had a positive message of spreading peace, love, and unity from one community to the next. And that's how I came up with this brand, 1LoveIE. And so here I was 10 years ago, I started this brand, and I kind of knew a few things, but I didn't know so much about fashion. I didn't know about screen printing. I didn't know about sewing. I didn't know about embroidery. I didn't know anything. And so I do remember I was supposed to go to FITM, a Fashion Institute Design and Merchandising. And I was going to go to FITM, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to take this big leap of faith. And so I wanted to go to FITM to get the experience and learn and network. And a friend of mine, she talked me out of it. She actually graduated from FITM, and she said, you know what, you shouldn't go. It's a waste of money. You're going to spend X amount of dollars and only end up with an associate's degree. You're not going to get your bachelor's. So I said, okay. So I took that advice. I didn't go to FITM, and I ended up going to Cal State LA, where I got my bachelor's. But I used that opportunity to connect with people, ask questions. I had friends who were kind of in the industry, so I would ask them questions. Hey, who's a good screen printer? Hey, how does this work? Hey, what does this do? I was just asking so many questions. So in a sense, I was kind of interning without them knowing I was interning. And so eventually one friend would give me a piece of advice, the other friend would give me advice, and I would learn from trial and error. And so eventually I came up with this logo, and then I started with 12 hats. I started small. And so I was nervous because here I am stepping foot into the industry, the fashion industry, and it's so critical and judgmental. There's so many gatekeepers, and there's so many people in this industry, and I'm just like, I don't want to fail. But when we think about failure, I don't believe in the word failure. And so if you're watching this, I want you to keep this in mind. The word fail, we have to redefine it. Let's give it a new definition. So when we hear the word fail, we should think about it like this: first attempt in learning. So that is what I took it as. I said, okay, I'm gonna try this. And if this doesn't work, I'm gonna keep trying, because I love fashion and I know I have a place in this industry. And so I started with 12 hats. And it was funny in the beginning, so many people were negative. So many people were saying, oh, this is not gonna work. Nobody's gonna wear a heart logo. Nobody's gonna rep the IE. You're wasting your time. But I believed. And part of the fashion industry is about you believing in yourself, you taking that leap of faith, because every year we see new trends, we see new concepts, because it came from someone's mind. It came from someone believing in themselves. And so I said, okay, I'm gonna start with these 12 hats, and I'm gonna give them out to my friends, which I did. And I gave them out to 12 of my friends. And at the same time, Instagram was first introduced. And so all of a sudden you started seeing people respond like, yo, what is this hat? What is this heart logo? I like that. I want to get one. I want to get one. And next thing you know, it blew up. And now I was caught off guard, because I honestly didn't think it was going to catch that fast. And so I went from 12 hats to 24, 36, 100, 144. It just started happening. And then I fell back in love with the process, because I enjoyed meeting people. I enjoyed making the money. I enjoyed coming up with these concepts and seeing the reward. The reward was the money. People were willing to pay for this idea that I came up with. But the most important thing is, if you decide to do something in this fashion industry, I want to encourage you to not only think about you being unique, but think of a way that you can affect change. Think of a way that you can create change and provoke thought for people, for folks to start thinking outside the box. And so when we look at Tom's shoes, 1 for 1. So when you buy a shoe, they give a shoe. So for us, next year, we're changing a little bit. We're going to start focusing more on heart health. So when we look at statistics all across the board, heart attack, stroke, heart disease are the main causes of death in the United States, in the world. So with that being said, if our main logo is a heart, why not emphasize the fact that, hey, are you checking your health? Are you taking care of yourself? What are you doing to make sure your heart is in the right place? And so I know it's cool to talk about fashion and, oh, we got the latest Yeezys or the latest shoes, whatever the case may be, but we need to start thinking about health. We need to start thinking about ourselves. So why not allow your next collection or your brand to influence some type of change? And so that's what we're going to start doing. So moving forward, we're going to start focusing more on heart health. And so that's something I've been thinking about. I think it's cool. Anybody can make a brand, anybody can make a shirt, but what are you doing to make change? That's what you have to think about. What am I doing to make change? How am I influencing people to do good in this world? With your art, with your collection, with your apparel, it's a canvas, and you have an opportunity for folks to see it and think about themselves, their lives, and what type of changes they're going to make. And so I want to encourage that for you to do. And so going back to the brand, one of my biggest accomplishments was partnering with Nike. And so about 4 years ago, we came out with an exclusive shoe with Nike, and that happened through relationships and different people that I know that are in the industry that actually believed in the brand. But this was something that I always wanted to happen. And this is something that I wrote down, and I kind of manifested this. I thought about it. And again, remember, I told you, my love in high school was shoes. I love shoes. And I was willing to sell candy, sell CDs so I could buy shoes. And because my parents said no, but I found another avenue to get what it was that I wanted. And so one of the greatest accomplishments was doing a collection with Nike, and just that feeling is just so overwhelming sometimes, because imagine you create something for your community and everyone is celebrating with you. Everyone is happy with you. Everyone understands the idea and concept, like, hey, we went from not being recognized as a community and often getting overlooked to now we have a shoe with Nike. So now when people see that shoe, it says Inland Empire. Now people can identify with this, and they can also think like, hey, if he did it, I could do something too. And so I want to encourage you, as you think about this journey of yours, whether you decide to do, whether you decide to go into the fashion industry or you might do something completely different, I want you to start by believing in yourself. And a quote that I always reference is by Frank Gaines, and he says, in order to do the impossible, you must see the invisible. And so I want to spend a minute. I want you guys to just sit there, close your eyes. And I want you to envision what it is that you want to happen over the course of your life. So one of you guys might say, hey, I want to be in Vogue. I want to have 10 store accounts. I want to have a brand that everybody wears. Whatever it is that you see here, I want you to really, really home in on it and think about that. And so I want to spend a minute, and we're going to think about what it is that we want to happen. And as you think about that, I want you to start thinking about the blueprint. Create the roadmap of how you're going to get there. How are you going to achieve this? So when you say, okay, I want to have this amazing brand, what does that look like? What does an amazing brand look like? Does that mean you have 1,000 stores? Does that mean you have a crazy online presence? What does that look like? I want you to really think about that. So I'll give you a minute. Let me set my timer. All right, timer set. And I want you to think about what it's going to look like. Eyes closed if you can, and think about it. I want you to picture it happening. Picture it as if this is in real time. What is taking place? but also think about the steps that you're going to take in order for this to happen. All right, time's up. All right. So as you start to build your life and you build out your goals, I want you to get in the habit of creating these spaces for yourself where you can think and write your ideas and thoughts down. And you put it somewhere where you can see it every day, or you check on it periodically, and you watch how these things start to manifest in your life. So see it, believe it, and you can achieve it. And so an example I'll give you, last year, we got a call from Footlocker and Champs. Footlocker and Champs reached out and said, hey, we like your brand. We believe in your concept. We want to carry your products. And so our brand is currently in 12 Footlockers and Champs in our region. And this has always been a goal of mine. And even going back to high school, when I was buying the shoes, I was going to Footlocker and Champs. And now the same stores I would spend my money, hard-earned money at, is now carrying my product. They're carrying our brand in their stores. So, and remember, I didn't go to fashion school. I don't have any famous uncle or famous aunt who's in the fashion industry. I dedicated myself to the grind. I believed in myself, and I did not give up. And there were a lot of moments where people said, no, this idea sucks. This is a waste of time. But I believed, and I knew for a fact that I would get to where I needed to be as long as I didn't give up. Half the battle is you not stopping. And so you have to continue going. Despite the ups and downs, the bumps in the road, you have to keep going. That's the secret. The secret is to continue going. And so when we look at different instances, like we could look at Ralph Lauren. Ralph Lauren started out by going door to door selling neckties. And Ralph Lauren is a multi-billion-dollar brand, and it's a household name. And there's many stories like that. And you are no different. And so I would love to leave you with this. The fact that we all have the same 24 hours in the day. I want to ask you, how are you going to spend your time each day as you prepare to achieve your goals and your dreams? We all have the same 24 hours. So with that being said, nothing is impossible. It all depends on how bad you want it. So, Doc, those are my words. And again, thank you for having me. And I hope we have some questions. I hope some of the students have some questions.
Well, that was awesome. I definitely want to post some questions for you to address. I like the way that you did the visualization with the students. Mm-hmm. And then you also touched on how half the battle is you not stopping. Half the battle is you not stopping.
Yeah, I mean, right before the call, we were talking about basketball. And even when we put in the context, when we look at Michael Jordan is a great example. You know, Jordan, as we all know, he didn't make his high school basketball team. But Jordan dedicated himself every single day. He wanted to prove that coach wrong, that he made a mistake. And every day that coach knows he made a mistake, because you can't go anywhere in this world and not see anything of Michael Jordan, because Jordan's legacy lives on, whether it's in Kobe, whether it's in Giannis, whether it's in Kawhi Leonard. All the greats that we see today were inspired by Michael Jordan. And Jordan's shoes sells out. If we're talking about fashion, Jordan's shoes sells out every single weekend, and this man hasn't played in over 20 years. But it's all because he never stopped. He dedicated himself, and he believed that it was going to happen.
And so we have some questions that are going to speak to persistence. And we just recently came out of a pandemic. And
Mm-hmm.
and so our first question is about that persistence. I know most industries experienced a dip in the
Yeah.
pandemic. How did you manage to recover during the or after the pandemic?
I'll be completely honest with you, Doc. You know, the pandemic um, was a little tough for us, but I remember moments when I first started this brand and I couldn't sell anything. And I was like, this is not going to work. I had boxes stacked all the way all almost to the ceiling. And I'm like, no one was buying anything. So when the pandemic came, I knew exactly what to do. And I told myself, if I lost my stores, and I'm sorry, class, I do have 2 stores now. If I lost my stores, I would go back to meeting people in parking lots and selling clothes. I would go to barbershops, wherever I needed to go to get these clothes out. I was willing to go back to that because those were the steps that I took to get me here. So it's okay to go back to repeat those steps. And so when the pandemic hit, I had to pivot. I had to think outside the box. Hey, okay, what can we do? What kind of promotions can we do? How can we partner with other people? But let me take a step back. How can I support my community? How can I help my community? That's what it was about. The pandemic showed people's true colors. So as a brand, we've been around in this community for 10 years. And as we all saw, a lot of people were hurting. So I took whatever resources I had and I tried to give back. And so I gave back by hosting different food drives, partnering with different community leaders that I know and said, hey, we need to support our community. At this time, it's not even about selling clothes, it's about supporting our community. And so that's what we did to sustain the pandemic. Now, don't get me wrong, we still have folks that were buying stuff online, which was great, very appreciative. But we turned that around and said, okay, cool, we're still here. We have to be a voice for our community. We have to support our community. And so that's what we use the pandemic for. We look for opportunities and ways to partner with other community members to support our community.
Well, I'm sure that the students that are watching and that'll be watching in the future will definitely take that to heart. Now we see some global trends going on. Of course, now we're talking about inflation. Now we're talking about
Yes.
trade wars. Now we're talking about money high one day, money low the next, resources high the next day, gas high the next. So what global trends, talk a little bit about the global trends that you see that's challenging the fashion industry. It's one thing to talk, for a pandemic to impact
Right.
how society moves. Now we're talking about some of the things that globally that can challenge how you can actually be an entrepreneur. What do you see?
Yeah, so inflation is definitely affecting business all across the board. So price of material is going up, labor costs are going up. And so those are some of the challenges that we have to kind of work through. But I will say globally, we're starting to see the industry shift a bit to sustainability. So if you pay attention to a lot of these bigger brands, they're starting to do a new program where they're recycling apparel. So you could bring in your old apparel and they'll take that apparel and recycle it and repurpose it into new apparel. And so Nike's been doing that for a while, where they'll take old shoes and they'll melt them down and they'll use that rubber for playgrounds and different things that they need to make their apparel with. So sustainability is going to be key. So if you're thinking about the fashion industry, getting into the fashion industry, think about sustainability. Hey, what if I go into the ocean and I get all the trash that's in the ocean and I recycle the plastic and all this clutter that we see in the ocean? How can I repurpose that into the fashion industry? How can I make a vest out of it? Or how can I make some type of apparel out of this trash that's polluting our ocean? So think about sustainability. Sustainability is going to be the hot topic years to come.
Well, that's awesome. The way that you've discussed vision, the way that you have discussed how to actually pivot in the middle of a global pandemic, and then now sustainability, looking for ways to basically repurpose yourself. We'll go ahead and entertain this last question. How is the fashion industry for you unlike no other?
The fashion industry, this, I can honestly say this has been a dream come true for me. Although I'm not on some New York runway, but I still feel that I've made it. Even in my own community, I've made it. Considering last year we got Small Business of the Year in California. This year I was awarded Innovator of the Year in my community. I believe with this brand, this fashion industry has been good to me because it has given me an opportunity to explore my creative side. It's given me the opportunity to connect with so many people. And one thing that I do pride myself on is we don't say customers, we say family members. And so my family has grown, and this is all because of the fashion industry. And when I think about when I was first thinking about this, imagine if I didn't act on the idea, the vision that I had, I wouldn't be here today. There would be no conversation with you and I, Doc. But the fact that I acted on that, and the fact that I have the opportunity to share my story, and hopefully this will inspire someone else to go live out their dream and live out their purpose, I win every time. I win every time, because there's no greater feeling for someone to wake up every day and come to work excited. I come to one of my stores excited because I'm doing something that I genuinely love doing. And then the response that I get from the community, when I see someone that has this logo tattooed on them, or when someone calls me, hey man, I'm in Nebraska and I saw someone with a hat on as I was getting off the plane, and like, this is crazy. Or someone's like, hey, I got pulled over, but the cop let me go because he liked my hat. He knew what the brand stands for. The fact that we created this community, we're creating this culture of peace, love, and unity. And this is all possible because of the fashion industry. And so there's so many levels to this, and that's a whole nother story. But where I'm at today, I am beyond blessed and I'm beyond thankful. And I will say, never give up on your goals and your dreams. Next month, my team and I, we're very happy and proud to announce that we will be opening up 2 store locations in the Ontario Airport, Terminal 2 and Terminal 4. Again, I'm the same guy who was selling candy and CDs out of his backpack. And here I am gearing up to open up a store in the airport, international airport. It's a dream come true, but it all starts with you believing in yourself. And the key is just not to give up. And so the fashion industry has been very good to me. And, again, whenever you do decide to come into this industry, take care of it, make change, and influence the world for good, for doing something good. And so that's what I have for you, Doc.
Well, that's amazing. Justin Hudson of 1LoveIE. Before we do sign off, please tell your family where they can find you in the other 2 locations.
Yes, so we're currently at the Tyler Mall in Riverside, and then we also have a location at the Victoria Gardens Mall in Rancho Cucamonga. And you can always reach out. Our Instagram is the number 1LoveIE. If you want to check out the website, 1loveie.com. And if you have more questions, you want to get in touch with me, just shoot us an email. You'll see it on the Instagram account, or even on the website, you'll see the contact, and someone from my team will forward it over to me.
Thank you again, Justin Hudson, and all the educators and students that have joined in to watch this Fashion Industry Month SBConnect session. Please go to sbcalliance.org, where you will find our next exciting session like this throughout the rest of the month and throughout the next year. So again, thank you, Justin Hudson, for all that you have done this day to connect with the Inland Empire. Have a wonderful day.
Peace and love, y'all.